perpetrators would have a court, and all the police would say, they'd come round dutifully and take statements, and all they would ever say is they're just kids trying to get money for drugs. And the wreckage that ensued. And I realise how much less fearful I am now, not living in a place where this happens all the time, but most of us in this country live in cities and are constantly, it's a little bit in the back of your mind. Of course there'll be crime, without illegal drugs, but everything that we're hearing here suggests it would be a great deal less. A couple of things that haven't been mentioned today are some sort of purely personal issues, but the freedom issue is not something we can pin down in reports like this. But honestly, if I go and grow some nice dope at home and smoke it myself, and my children won't have any because they say, oh, they won't end up all druggy like you. I am not harming myself. Well, if I am harming myself, it's my problem. It's not very serious, and I don't think it's going to cost the NHS so much, and I'm certainly not harming anybody else. But that, as I said, is a pure opinion issue, and one of the things I really like about this report and what's happening here today, and why I'm going to go out and publicise it as much as I can, is because it's not about those kind of opinion issues, it's about facts, gathering information and facts about it. In a way, this is even more depressing because we know our government will sack somebody for saying, let's base our policy on science. But I have to remain, as a lifelong scientist, I have to remain optimistic that in the end scientific truths will prevail over idiocy and bigotry and ignorance. Another point that hasn't been mentioned by anyone else is the pure class and racial unfairness of prohibition. Because I honestly think that, for me as a 60-year-old white, well-to-do, educated mother living in a small village in Devon, if I grow cannabis in my garden, my chances of being busted are quite small. If I were young and poor and black and living in Bristol, for example, or any city, my chances of not being busted would be very small. And that really makes me angry. I mean, lucky me, but it makes me angry. So there are many, many things here to add apart from this. So, can we be optimistic at all that anything's going to change? Because we've had how long? 40 years of the Misuse of Drugs Act. We've had every kind of human kind of stupidity, ignorance and refusal to accept the facts. Here we're presented with the most fantastic schemes that could really work, and we know that, well, we fear that nobody's going to listen. Will it change? Well, I think there were two things that politicians will want. One is money, and the other is votes. Here we have promises of the magic money. What did you call it? The
pot of gold.
The pot of gold, the magic pot of gold out of nowhere, yes. Will they listen? Well, I don't think they'll listen until they've got the other thing, which is the votes. And here, my optimism comes from my thought that there will be a tipping point. I think it's that kind of a phenomenon. It's not one of those slow, it's one of those things. If any politician standing for election thinks that by and large the people voting for him are of the just say no type, and they, ooh, drugs are dangerous, so we must prohibit them, then he or she will go that line. What it requires is there are enough of us ordinary people who are going to vote to make our politicians think, I might get more votes. And even, can you imagine this? Can you imagine? Let's say next year, let's say, or whenever the next election is, in a few years' time, the politicians, the candidates, clamouring to be the one loudest, saying, I'm going to be the one at last to sort out the cannabis problem. We'll get more money, and you could have bigger pensions, and they'll be clamouring to. Can you think that's going to happen? Well, I see some shaking heads, but it'll happen one day. It's got to happen one day. This horrendous burden, this great weight that we're all carrying around, will it just becomes heavier and heavier. At some point we're going to have to throw it off. But maybe it'll be sooner than later. So all I can say is I urge all of you, just get the word out, keep talking. There's nothing very dramatic we can do, but if every friend we tell other people, and we can actually change the number of people who will vote for someone who will get this done, that's the best I can think of. That's how I manage to go to sleep at night, not too depressed and a little bit hopeful. Thank you.